It's 11:11. Make a wish.
Off the schedule. Thank you. This is why I'm the boss bitch. Yes. Okay. She's really the boss bitch. I'm the figurehead. All right, I'm going to start it. 3, 2. Welcome to a special episode of the Hacking Hypermobility podcast.
I'm Luna.
I'm Shelly.
And we're two bendy mamas
Hacking Hypermobility.
And our producer, Tiffany, is going to get us started real quick.
Thank you, Luna. We are all so excited to finally get to speak with Dr. Akilah Cadet, our special guest. Dr. Cadet is the founder and CEO of Change Cadet, an organizational development consulting firm. As a Forbes Next 1000 entrepreneur, her work is behind some of the biggest brands that you use every day. Dismantling white supremacy through storytelling is at the core of her work as a leader, speaker, creative director, producer, writer, and editor. She is a co-owner of the Oakland Roots and Soul soccer team and author of the book White Supremacy is All Around, Notes from a Black Disabled Woman in a White World. Dr. Cadet is on the board of the directors for the Ehlers-Danlos Society. She literally has all the degrees, lives in and loves in Oakland, California, celebrates her disability, is a proud Beyonce advocate, and has an incredible shoe game. And on a personal note, I wanted to add in that the three of us were fortunate enough to get to see your presentation, your keynote presentation at the EDS conference in Philadelphia last year. And there was the one that we all three could make and attend. And you came out and introduced yourself and you said, "I'm Dr. Akilah Cadet. My pronouns are bad bitch." And the three of us immediately looked at each other and we were like, we need to talk to her. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Cadet, for spending some time with us and coming on the podcast. Before we get started with the interview, I have to know, how is Cowboy Carter?
Yeah, I mean, these are very important things. One, I just want to say I'm excited to be here for listeners or viewers. I am a stunning Black woman. I have a caramel complexion, hazel eyes. I have loose curls today, and I'm sitting in my office in Oakland, California. I'm wearing a violet color, or some of you may know it as a soccer jersey, for my soccer team, who has a game later today, the Oakland Soul.
I love this. I should have thought
I'm just thrilled to be here. I'm glad we were able to connect at the Philly conference, and I've been waiting to be here to talk with y'all, and I look forward to it. Cowboy Carter, I think I went to the second or third show.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. It was really, really hard physically because I currently, at that moment in time, I had recently been diagnosed with pericarditis, inflammation of the lining of my heart, and pleurisy, inflammation of the lining of my lungs. So it was a big deal for me to get on a plane. It was a big deal to be in fucking LA traffic
God.
to get to my stadium. But me and my completely bedazzled cane and wheelchair assistants got me to my floor seat, and I had a wonderful time. I've been to all but the very first Verizon's First Ladies tour of Beyonce and all of her performances, and I had a wonderful time. You know, even though I was in a lot of pain, joy is an important part of managing pain, and I was able to have that for 2 hours and 45 minutes, and then took my ass home. And
how long did you have to recover from that?
Yeah.
How many days after were you a human again?
No, I was there literally for 20 hours. I left at, I don't know, like 8 in the morning, and I was showered and back in my bed with multiple heating pads at 10 a.m. the next day. So it was very quick.
Whirlwind.
I did that once for Luscious Jackson. I got you. It was, yeah. Anyway, that's derailing. And we only have an hour.
That's a 90s deep cut gem. I like that.
And you left out a part. It's an anniversary for you, right? When you went?
It's 2 anniversaries for me. It's February of this year is 1 year of my book, and February of this year is 10 years of my business. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, we're going to ask you some questions about your health journey and your empire. But before we get further, I would love our listeners to have a little context, because maybe they don't. If they aren't familiar with your book, White Supremacy is All Around, it's the story of many things, the story of your diagnosis journey, some of your career, your personal development, some family stories, but all all of your writing is through an intersectional lens, a perspective of we are not just one thing, right? So your advocacy work has a very strong focus on intersectionality. Can you explain that term for our listeners that might not be familiar with the term intersectionality and what that means to you?
Yeah, of course. So intersectionality is a term coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, who is a lawyer and a Black woman, 89. Intersectionality means the intersections of our identities. So as I say in the title of my book, Notes from a Black Disabled Woman, I am a Black person. I am a woman. I'm also disabled. So those are parts of my intersectionality. In addition to that, I am a first generation kid. So I'm the child of an immigrant. So that's part of my intersectionality. I'm a twin. That's part of my intersectionality. So we're talking about the experiences that happen as a result of how we identify our groups, our identities, our culture, our religion, our identity. And that is intersectionality. So if you think about a bus going down the street, and there's intersections in every, corner. If that first intersection is people without health insurance, they have to get off. If the next intersection is women, they would have to get off. If the next intersection is disabled folks, they would have to get off. And basically, as that bus goes all the way down to the final destination, we will have heterosexual, cisgendered, non-disabled, probably wealthy white men that are on that final destination, and they have the most power. So I talk about white supremacy being all around because my intersectionality is impacted by white supremacy. All of us have shared intersectionality with EDS, right? That's part of my disability with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I have myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which means out of the 13 types, less than 1 in a million people have the type that I have. So intersectionality, that's what it is.
So I appreciate you going through the bus analogy.
That is the
and
best
explaining
one. That's
it.
one of the best analogies I've heard.
So many people that have a certain amount of privilege and comfort don't think about these things, or don't think about people of various oppressed classes or groups of people, or think to advocate until they experience some sort of trauma or something that marginalizes them. There's plenty of people in the disabled community that will say, hey, this is the only form of oppression that you could experience at any time. Anybody could become disabled. And I will say personally, I work in healthcare. I have used healthcare, as a consumer for a long time, but it wasn't until I got truly, truly sick, even knowing the context of history and how healthcare has used Black women, particularly for research and horrible things. And there's so much more of that you describe in your book. I'm not going to get into the details in the interest of time, but I knew the context of history, but I didn't really experience an awakening of how much white supremacy is in healthcare until I was truly horribly disabled. And the way I figured it out was in black and white. I was on my deep dive when I found out about hypermobility, trying to learn about EDS and reading all of the medical studies. And every medical studies cohort is a small amount of white women. And that's when I realized, why are we only studying, normally in medical research, why are we only studying men? But in EDS, it's why are we only studying white people? And so we have a very long way to go. After I read your book, and I've read other books on the topic too, but yours was particularly powerful because it's about our diagnosis with EDS, although I don't have your type. And I realized that we're not going to close the gap on the delay to diagnosis, which on average is middle age, even though we were born with this. And we're not going to close the gap on the trauma, the medicalized trauma that we experience and the gaslighting, until we begin to center other oppressed classes within medical research, and until we start to hold healthcare accountable. And I will say thank you, because your book helped me crystallize that thought. Because a lot of us are scared to confront people in power, particularly doctors. And so many of us don't confront the system. We don't confront a provider. And I really think it begins there. So I just wanted to say thank you for that key turning point in my own understanding of things. And then I'm going to let Shelley ask some questions just about your journey with EDS.
So thank you for sharing that. That was wonderful.
So as we recently discussed, many people's diagnostic journey with EDS or HSD is long and difficult. The middle age, I was 44 when I finally got diagnosed, but I'm super privileged. So my journey was awful, but the journey is disproportionately more difficult for BIPOC people. EDS information, outreach, and awareness has become a trending like social media thing with the platforms. But even with that, the BIPOC voices who can speak to these conditions are suppressed by the algorithms. So people that need the information and support aren't being reached. Do you have any insight as to how we can maybe use our privilege to amplify these voices?
Yeah. So anyone who passes as or identifies as white, when they have a platform and they're talking about EDS, they can always just share words like intersectionality, and that it can look different for people with different lived experiences and backgrounds. And BIPOC people won't or may not be as diagnosed as I was, or I have a privilege of my doctors listening to me, and the pain of, a Black woman, for example, is not valued as much as my pain as someone who may identify as a white woman. And so it just bring it into the zeitgeist and helping people understand that. If anyone is in a position of advocacy, it is talking about what y'all just were talking about. The research doesn't include me. So if it doesn't include me, it's not going to diagnose me. And if it's not going to diagnose me, it's definitely not going to treat me, right? Because people don't know what to do.
Right.
As a Black hetero woman myself, I'm going to get, you probably have lupus, I'm going to get rheumatoid arthritis, and I'm not going to get the additional genetics testing or advocacy or the Bain score or any of those things to get to the point of diagnosis. And so that's why storytelling is really important. So if people are talking about it and using their platforms, bring the intersectionality into the conversation. Because I don't have your intersectionality. I do have light skin privilege, so I'm able to be better received in white spaces, but I'm still not a white woman. And I talk about EDS for everyone.
Right. Right. So speaking of stories, there's many examples in your book where you talk about how you've experienced racism and ableism in your life. And some of the most powerful moments in your book is when you describe facing those people who are doing you harm. So would you be able to share a story with us where you faced racism and ableism in healthcare and what you did to address it and to advocate for change?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the thing to keep in mind is I have privilege. I am Dr. Akilah Cadet. So I have a doctorate. My doctorate is from a med school. I have a non-clinical background, but I was pre-med. My doctorate is in leadership and organizational behavior. So what are the systems and functions that are needed for the people in these systems, so the patients and the providers, to be able to provide care? So I know a lot. I'm also a former health administrator for the San Francisco Department of Public Health and other organizations. I worked on health reform. So
Why
I'm a
is this so
very
familiar?
knowledgeable. Wait, tell me more.
No, just the health kit,
we have a very parallel life.
Yeah, you too.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I don't do healthcare stuff anymore because it's traumatizing.
I've burned out and
that's why I don't work in the federal government anymore.
Down the ladder.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not city and county. Well, federal, no, I don't do that. But again, it's important that I share that preference. So I can go into an environment and say I'm your colleague. I can go into the environment and say, Dr. Akilah Cadet. I can sign my chat, my chart email by saying, Dr. Akilah Cadet, and then people make an assumption of what they think a doctor is, because people are also misinformed with how many there are, in the world. So in this particular time, and I share this story in the book, I was having chest pain and tachycardia. So I'm privileged enough to go to One Medical, boutique healthcare. I went there, they ran an EKG, and they're like, you know what? You either get to drive yourself to the ER, or we're going to call an ambulance for you. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to drive myself, because I have the privilege to know
that chart.
But I have the privilege to know that as a Black woman in pain, I've never been admitted to the emergency room ever. And
that doesn't surprise me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't want to be stuck with the bill, even though I have a platinum PPO. I don't want to be stuck with the bill of paying for an ambulance. So for folks who don't know, the only way you don't pay for an ambulance is if you are admitted to the hospital. So I drove myself.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is a good tip.
Fun fact.
Fun fact about insurance.
Yes, at the emergency room. I was there, and typically when you have heart stuff, you tend to be triaged pretty quickly. Along the way, I did send an email to my cardiologist, which I always do. So he sends a note ahead of time. That's another form of privilege I have. I have a really great relationship with my cardiologist. I talk about him in the book. We've done also work together, which is cool. And I'm his favorite. I like that. So
That's right.
he always sends a note to say that, Akilah, even though it's in my chart, Akilah needs to be evaluated for X, Y, and Z cardiac things. And so, I get there, I'm seen pretty quickly. I'm triaged, but when I come out of triage, I'm returned back to the waiting room, and I can hear that a white woman who had a lot of diamonds on, but I also have a lot of diamonds. She came out, I overheard she also had an irregular EKG, but she came out with an IV. So we had to do repeat EKGs, but she came out with an IV, and her blood was drawn sooner. Long story short, we ended up in the same room together, curtain just dividing us. And I heard the ER doc tell her that we know you have a history of panic attacks. Oh, we can see you're getting a panic attack right now. We're going to give you some Ativan, but we're going to admit you and just monitor you overnight. You're probably fine, but one of our cardiologists is one of the best cardiologists around. We just want to just evaluate overnight just to make sure you're fine. Then they come into my room. They're like, we don't know what's wrong with you. And I already had heart things at that time. We don't know what's wrong with you. So
Bye.
I don't know. What do you want?
Did they send you away?
Yeah, they sent me home. And I bring that up because it's one of the most clear things, because again, she had an irregular EKG at a doctor's appointment and was sent from the doctor's office. I had the same exact thing, but she got the overnight treatment for evaluation and I did not. I would also benefit from a 24/7 EKG, having leads on my body and doing additional imaging to see, okay, we see this, or the tachycardia is happening because of.
But they didn't even give you an IV.
And I eventually got an IV back in the room, but
they gave her one first?
Yes. So she got the head start to that. And so, I can't tell you the countless stories that I have of every time I go to the emergency room. I do not like going to the emergency room.
Because it's every time.
It's every time I have to advocate for myself one way or other. The only way that doesn't happen is if there's a DO who's the triage ER doctor. So people don't realize there's a doctor in triage, and they will set up what you need. And then you have another doctor when you go back into the emergency room. So if it's a DO, a doctor of osteopathy, and I went to a DO med school, A.T. Still University.
I love a DO.
I always get the test. Or if it is a Black person. And if that triage doc is a Black person, I get a private room. I get all the tests, and tests will be rerun. I will get the angiogram. I will, and I don't have to just deal with a chest X-ray, for things. So yeah.
I've experienced similar things, but it obviously probably wasn't racism because nobody ever clocks my different ethnicities, except some people. But I moved through the world white, but disabled. And I've had to advocate for my mother for pain and for myself. Just real quickly, she was accused of being a drunk because she had acute idiopathic pancreatitis, which is associated with alcoholism, and also EDS. But they weren't even listening to her. And she was in so much pain that she couldn't advocate for herself. She called me and I had to come in and set it straight. But that was a privilege because I could speak their language. And on my own experiences, I've been turned away from the ER. The most traumatic time was I went in, thought something was happening in my chest. I felt like something was exploding or ripping. And they said, it's just a panic attack. We're really backed up from COVID because it was the pandemic. You can either wait, it'll probably be at least a day before we can get you in for imaging, and our only bed is in the hallway. Or you can just leave and follow up with your doctor. Well, I left because I knew I couldn't sit on a gurney for a day.
Probably without fluids or anything.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, it was just triage. And it turns out that's when I was diagnosed with the dilated aorta, which is a risk for aortic aneurysm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the ripping is an indication of that. And you should have been assessed before they made the decision of what to do. Yeah. I mean, it's the start of an aortic dissection, and which is what you don't want because that's how you die.
Yeah. And I had an EDS diagnosis at the time, and they still were
I
like,
know,
yeah.
but people don't understand EDS, so that part never
No,
matters.
they don't at all. And I was too panicked I went to another facility. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, all the time when I'm in the emergency room, particularly for heart-related stuff, you must just be anxious.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Take
probably
some
just
deep
stressed
breaths.
out because you're a woman who lives in this world. So
You're just,
yeah, take
You're
some deep
running
breaths.
an empire. Of course you're stressed.
But, well, yeah, there's that. But you know, keep in mind that the white woman in this story I just shared, she was given medication to deal with her anxiety, right?
yeah.
Or her panic
So
attack
she was
or
still
her stress,
treated that way. Yeah.
right? And I wasn't given anything, right? I didn't even get the courtesy of being able to have a drug to help relax if that's what it was.
Yeah.
And she
And
also had a
Ativan's
history
nice.
of panic attack in her chart. So as a result of that,
And you
you
had
already
a
know she has a
separate note
history.
from your cardiologist in your chart.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I know.
And they
Yeah, but
still
those
did
things
that.
don't matter. Yeah, yeah. And that's because of the package that I'm in, right? So every time I go to the emergency room, I have to deal with the direct correlation of the history of enslavement in America.
And
That
every
is,
time
you
it's
know,
a trauma phase, you're facing a
every
trauma.
time it's a trauma phase, but you have to remember that in order for African people, then eventually, you know, Black people to be beat, raped, harmed, burned, maimed, there had to be belief that we had a higher pain tolerance in order to justify the inhumanity we were experiencing. And that is still
I never
taught
thought about
in
it like that.
healthcare
There's so
today.
many
Yeah.
things that perpetuate.
I never thought about that.
There's just so many things that are just now being removed from textbooks. One of them made me crazy was lung volumes and lung capacity. There was a fake study basically saying that that's what made them stronger. And that has been perpetuated for hundreds of years until somebody finally studied it and was like, that's not true. And it was in textbooks
Yeah.
until like last year.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is being removed. I'm sure all of you know that gynecological studies happened by this white man. I don't like to use his name. He
Please
was a
don't.
doctor, but I don't give him the respect of that. But when it came to particularly fistulas, so many enslaved Black women were used to figure out the surgery for fistulas. And as soon as it was figured out and done on white women, pain management was offered, right? It was not even offered. Pain management happened. So there was the sedation or the pain management that happened at the moment in time so they wouldn't have to suffer. And some of these enslaved women went through fistula processes and the exploratory surgery multiple times, right? So what a lot of people
Incredible
do not realize
torture.
is that when you have this history that I have as a Black person in this country, and the white people that started healthcare systems, and it's not to say that
It's baked
as
in.
Indigenous people or as African people that we didn't already have our forms of healthcare. That's how we have inoculation. It comes from a formerly enslaved person. But the whole point of that is that the systems and structures of the people in power who created these health systems determined that we were less than.
Yes.
And that perpetuates today. That's why there's stereotypes. Like if I were to say sickle cell, people would be like, oh, that's something only for Black people. It's not true. There are non-Black people who have sickle cell anemia, but that's the marketing and branding of that. The marketing and branding of that means the resourcing into that is also going to be limited. It wasn't until last year that there's a groundbreaking study for sickle cell. And as of this year, there's one young Black kid who no longer has sickle cell by this super expensive treatment.
I saw that.
Right?
I think I saw, I didn't read the whole.
As a young
Yeah.
man.
But the researching also doesn't go into that. So if we bring it back into EDS, when you have anything that's on the rare type, then the resourcing is limited. But the resourcing that comes in will be centered in a white experience. You know, it's anywhere colonization happens, it'll be centered in the white experience. Research in general is centered around white men because medicine comes from white men, right? So they're thinking about themselves. It's the very reason why Viagra is covered, you know, for your flexible spending account, your healthcare spending plan, and not sanitary products for women, right? So that's why intersectionality is so important. And that's why I will talk about it for the rest of my life.
And we should.
Speaking of you having a rare type, you have myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or MEDS.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany had some specific question about that. I'm going to let our producer ask.
Just so everyone knows, like in the audience, meds, the myopathic Ehlers-Danlos, it makes Dr. Cadet literally 1 in a million, and it's considered an ultra rare form of EDS. So on what you just spoke about, can you talk to us about your diagnostic journey with one of the rarest EDS types available? At the conference, you said you have to be extra, and I appreciate that. But could you share your diagnostic journey and like what were your initial symptoms that you experienced that kind of brought to your like, oh, this something's off, and then how were you finally diagnosed?
Yeah. So, for me, as we all know, and we've heard beautifully already, in this discussion, we were all, in the words of Lady Gaga, born this way, right? But we didn't get diagnosed until later in life. So for me, the start of my diagnosis journey was on just a family trip to Europe. I am, again, a child of immigrant, so I've been to all these places I was going to multiple times before, so there's nothing excited about it. But I mean, I love traveling, but it wasn't like, oh my God, it's my first time. But I was having flutters on the plane there, and it didn't make any sense. I'm like, why am I having flutters? And then it was a 2-week trip. I was having night sweats. And then towards the end of the trip, I was in the Louvre and I was in the Egyptian antiquity section. Nice. And I had like the most intense chest pain. And I was like, all right, okay. So clearly spirits are trying to talk to me. I don't know what they're trying to say because my dad is from Haiti and my mom's family is from Louisiana. So I'm super voodoo. So I'm all about spirits. And so that was the only thing that made sense to me. Spirits are trying to talk to me. And I really hate when Egyptian artifacts are used because these are people who wanted to be in their resting space. And so I just got out of the section, took some deep breaths.
I would have taken that sign too. Like, okay.
Yeah. And so I came home, and this was a while, it was 8 years ago. And so I was catching up to Real Housewives. I had a lot of Real Housewives to catch up to while dealing with just fatigue and, all the travel, time difference, all that shit. So I was sitting there and I went into tachycardia, and I had at that time a monitor on my phone, and tachycardia is 100 beats or more per minute while resting. And that didn't make any sense to me. Next day I had a meeting to get back to work, and I had a meeting that was like a 5 minutes drive. And I went into tachycardia again. This time it was like 130 some odd beats per minute. I had to pull over, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? But I made an appointment with my primary doc. And again, I'm privileged to have one medical. So it was a Friday. So that appointment was on Monday. I go in, I grab electrolyte water. I'm like, maybe I'm just super dehydrated. And then I get the contract. It was a lot of money, which was great. And then I go home. I'm still not feeling well. I wake up in the morning. I have more chest pain and tachycardia. So I'm like, oh, I know where this is going. So I called urgent care and or the nurse helpline, and she was like, yeah, I think you're gonna need to go to urgent care. So she's making an appointment. I was like, yeah, cool. So my left arm is numb.
No.
Like, call 911. You gotta go to emergency right now. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go, but I'm not gonna call an ambulance.
Yeah.
And so at the time I lived 3 minutes from the ER. I asked a neighbor to take me, and that was the start of the journey. So my EDS stuff started with my heart. So I was going through a diagnosis of lots of different types of things. I had what I mentioned that I had earlier when I saw Cowboy Carter, so pericarditis, pleurisy, and costochondritis, so inflammation of heart, lungs, and cartilage of my ribs. And I had that for like a year. And then pain was kept going down my left side. And so I had to do a lot of neurological testing. We had to rule out to make sure that all my pulmonology functions, my cardiovascular functions were fine. And then someone along the way mentioned this EDS thing. And I was like, okay. And I looked it up, and it was just a whole bunch of white people. So I was like, I don't know if I can have this. And some of the symptoms, it didn't make sense. But probably about a year later, I realized, I went on this journey. I found the Bite and Scale. I found the Ehlers-Danlos Society website, and there was so much more information in there. And I was realizing, like, I think this is the thing I have. So I brought the Bite and Scale into my appointment with my provider, who always believed me. And so that's another form of privilege, as soon as my heart stuff started, she connected me with the cardiologist she adored. And the two of them believed me from the start. And we went on this journey together. So I brought the Brighton scale. We do it. I pass with flying colors. And
yay, the one test that's like, you don't really.
Yeah, the one that you don't want to pass. And to this day, she will tell you that I diagnosed myself with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. We immediately put me in the running to be seen in the Bay Area, UCSF's, University of California, San Francisco's genetics. They have a genetics clinic. It was almost about a year of going through the paperwork and the process and appointments and things they wanted me to have. And I was so frustrated because I knew I needed genetics testing.
You just ordered your own, did it?
Yeah, but at that time I had to rule out vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome because
Right.
of the amount of cardiology things I had going on.
Same with my family.
I was doing a photo shoot and randomly the photographer was like, "Oh, my husband works at this genetics lab." And I was like, "What?
Hey, bestie."
What do you mean? She was like, "Here, I'll send you this thing. And if you want to get a panel, do the," and so I did a connective tissue panel that came back and it showed that I have this whole fun thing happening with one of my genes. And that's how I got to the diagnosis of myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so I just took it to all my doctors and I was like, "Here, this is myopathic. This is what we're going to deal with." But the funny thing that it's really important that people know is that with genetics testing, it's not a concrete a yes or no because there's not enough data because it's rare disease to show something. So you're dealing with, they say it in different types of ways, but usually variance is part of it. Variance of unknown significance or VUS or what have you. And so I have these irregularities in particular genes that tie back to myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So with myopathic EDS, you have a lot of distal subluxations, partial dislocations, or full dislocations. Distal meaning your feet and your fingers and your wrists. And so all the time, these little bitches like to come out, which is so fun. It also results in really tight muscles and really loose muscles, and they don't like to align. So you'll have something tight around something loose that will pull stuff out. So my sternum likes to come out all the time. My ribs like to come out all the time. My shoulders like to come out all the time. And then my feet.
Sleeping is the worst for you.
What is sleep? But it's definitely a lot. And it described the pain and the dislocations and the subluxations to a T. And I felt so seen. So some people with myopathic EDS can get better over time and some will progressively get worse. It also affects hearing. So I have hearing loss as well. And
does it affect vision too? Does it do vision also, or?
Not for me, but I have a rare kidney disease that does affect my vision.
Because why not?
Yeah, because why not? And I bring that up because I have a rare kidney disorder. I can't take anti-inflammatories.
Come on.
Yeah, so I live in a lot of pain. So I'm pretty much.
So the doctor's like, go home and take some ibuprofen and you take.
I can't take ibuprofen. I can't take naproxen.
None of the usuals.
No.
So many of us experience difficulties with medications too. And so many of us are late diagnosed and diagnosed ourselves. I really resonated with hearing your story. I think it's really important that you pointed out the VUS thing, which you were trying to explain. It's very important for people in our situation who might get consumer genetic testing to know that we don't know enough in medical research. So really, you still do have to partner with a physician who knows about the inherited connective tissue disorders to really clinically assess you as well.
If you can find me.
I went through kind of a similar situation, but it was as a mom trying to figure out what was wrong with my own child and then putting pieces together. And I ended up testing and teaching myself genetics.
And then she helped me.
And then helped her else. But so what
we have 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I think on my last question is
you have to come back later.
Yeah, we have to have you back.
We're gonna be out of time.
You'll have 15 more minutes. So yeah. At least 15. I just have 15? To go by the
Okay. Then I would love to have you apply what you do with your work to healthcare. So what strategies would you like to see healthcare organizations, allied healthcare providers, advocates, that sort of thing, use and employ to dismantle white supremacy within these structures of how we provide healthcare in the United States and the Western world?
I'm a big fan of burn it all down. Healthcare is not in a great place.
Elmo meme.
I think it's important to note that So a couple things to book in that, just so everyone knows, I was diagnosed with EDS May 2021.
November 2021 for me.
November. Hey.
November for me.
The reason why I bring up May is because that is Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month. In 2022, I was asked to be the keynote speaker for the Ehlers-Danlos Society at the international conference in Ireland. And I did that in 2023. And then in 2023, I was immediately asked to join the board. So when we talk about healthcare, because I was a keynote speaker and I said, none of y'all care about me at all. You asked me to come up here and talk about intersectionality with Black people who have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but there's not one single Black person on your board.
Yeah. What
so
are you
no
doing?
one's looking out for the research.
So you
no one's
called
looking
out the
for it.
tokenism.
Yeah.
Yeah, you put me up here on a stage to get.
Yeah, but you want to know what I did?
Yes.
I said, oh my God, there's a typo in my slides, because I had sent my slides ahead of time. I was like, there's a typo in my slides. I got to send you the new one. They're like, oh my God, no problem. And so I added the slide in literally 20 minutes before the presentation. You know, I gave it to them, so they had no idea I was going to say this. I literally put the board on there and I was like, none of y'all are Black. And that's what I do. So at that moment in time, the president, still president now, Laura, stood up and was like, will you join the board? Like, will you join the board? And then the board president was like, will you join the board? And I was like, all right. But still stay. I'm the only Black person.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, if you insist.
Is that film?
Well,
I would love to see that.
You want to see what? Is it on video?
I would
No, it
love
is. Yeah.
to see
You can,
that.
if you look up the, Dr. Akilah Cadet, Ireland, EDS, Ehlers-Danlos Society conference, it comes up. It's all recorded. And the reason why I said that, to get to your question, is if I'm not there, BIPOC people are forgotten. Black, Indigenous people of color are absolutely forgotten. And I can guarantee that, because I'm still championing way too hard on my board. And I'm very vocal about it. They all know. We recently had a very difficult board meeting because we are the foremost organization in the world and we don't have representation. It's just a whole bunch of fucking white people. And we don't have representation. And I'm tired of being that only person. So this is why I say we have to kind of burn healthcare down, right? Because healthcare is different across the world. We know that. Mm-hmm. But in particular, we have these leading places with like the UK and, with America, it is adding to our pain and suffering as EDS folks, because no one wants to learn what it is, right? So I say this all the time. If we all had MS, we would have a different experience. But we don't. Or maybe some of us do, right? But we don't, right? If we had cancer, we'd have a different experience. MS and cancer are horrible things. MS and cancer are forms of disability, but there's more knowledge and awareness. Mm-hmm. There's more stories that are out there. There's the love story of the person with cancer. There's the celebrity who's out and about of, having, MS and all these things. And so it's normalized and there's a better form of treatment and more awareness there. And so today, where we are in 2025, in this month of June, where we are on the heels of this big, beautiful bill, which is a horrible bill, that wants to further rip apart, the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, Medicare, that provides so much support. About 26% of people who are on disability in the U.S. Have EDS. So this is their form of care, treatment, whatever. And today it is awful. This is before the big, beautiful bill. Today it is awful. Yeah. Today you have to fight for prior authorization for stuff. Today you have to fight for your medication. Today you have to fight to prove you're disabled enough, to be on disability, to have care. And with what the current regime, Donald Trump's government, wants to do is further take healthcare further back from ACA that started in 2014. They want to take it further back, right?
Let's go to 1798. I mean, why not?
Yeah,
no, that's just because with that, the reference of the alien, like, there's
but
what are we doing?
In 1798, my care was still horrible, so that means nothing to me.
I know, but like, actually, my care would have been shit too. So what am I talking about? But maybe better than yours. I'm derailing. That's not the point.
The thing to remember is, tell me about the woman who helped found this country. There's no founding mother of this country. There's no founding Black woman or Black man or non-binary person. No, we don't. We don't. We don't have any of those things.
Yeah.
I'm bringing this up because America was founded by 13 white men.
Yeah.
Majority of them were enslavers, and all of
Yep.
them were landowners, right? So all of us were not included in what's needed in America.
Right.
We're the only developed country that doesn't have universal health care.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's because it's all about capitalism. So that's why I confidently say you can burn it down today. Healthcare does not have care. Healthcare does not have care. We've already talked about that. I've shared my experience. Y'all have shared your experience of what it's like to have a rare condition, to be someone who identifies as a woman, to be a person of color. You have a different experience today. And where we're going, it is way worse. And so what needs to happen is that we have universal health care, but we can't have universal health care when it's about money and not about people.
And
right?
that's
So-
why I say,
Yep.
it's not just about race. You know, they like to divide us among things, but this is class warfare.
Yeah.
These are human rights, ultimately. So I love hearing you dissect this. In the book, you talk about how exhausting it is to be perceived as a warrior, as a fighter. And so often that's the trope of those of us with chronic illness or rare disease. And we're all exhausted. And you talk about how you don't want to live this way. You want to be a soft girl. Do you get the personal rest that you need as you balance advocacy work and walk through your life as who Dr. Cadet is?
No, I do not. So, and we all deserve it. We all deserve softness, right? So, you know, we can talk about spoons, the idea of how much energy you have to do things, but there's privilege in spoons, right? There's privilege in spoons. So where I am today, I am dealing with the direct correlation of the economy. I'm dealing with the direct correlation of the Donald Trump administration and regime. I'm dealing with the attack on DEI. I am scared for my life with what's going to happen with healthcare. I spend $1,300 a month on my platinum PPO plan, and it's expensive to be disabled. I bring all those things up because without money, I cannot live.
Right.
And the amount of money I used to make is a very, very, very tiny fraction to right now. The amount of money I used to make after the murder of George Floyd, when people cared about Black people, does not compare to the money I make today. So when I was diagnosed with pleural pericarditis, this is the first time I didn't have a team because I had to lay off my staff last summer. And I still have to run a company. So I wasn't able to 100% rest. I still had to work because I still have to make money and I still have to find new clients. At this current moment in time, I have a lidocaine patch on my back because my kidneys have been through it because I've experienced toxicity from the medication I was on to get over the inflammation. But I don't have time to rest because I have a project with the WNBA Valkyries, which is really cool. I used to play basketball.
That is awesome.
You know, I have to hop on a bridge and go to the game, handle a little business while I'm at the game, then to go do my business as an owner of a team to go to so the Valkyries game is at 12. I'm not going to get there on time, which is fine. The Valkyries game is at 12. My women's soccer game is at 4. And then my men's soccer team game is at 7. And I don't have the privilege to rest today. Because
today?
Today, that's her day.
But
and I'm doing.
And you chose to meet with us with all of that going on.
I only had two games today. I only had 2 games today, so I didn't have to be anywhere until 3.
I'm tired listening to that. I'm only doing this today.
I'm tired too. My point is,
that's me. I know.
My
I should
point
know,
is,
but I don't want you to be aware. I got you.
My point is, because I'm doing work with the Valkyries, and that relationship's important because I need to bring in money and deal with all this other stuff. I don't have the privilege to say no to that.
Can't not.
So I have to go. When they asked me to do something last night, I said, "Oh yes, okay, all right, we'll do this thing." And so that is what I'm doing. I don't have the privilege to say no. And when I don't have the privilege to say no, I cannot rest because I need money. Right?
Because of this capitalist society that is perpetuated by the white man.
Right.
Burn it all down.
Burn it down.
Yeah, right. And so when I talk about rest, I talk about it obviously with the lens of intersectionality, but there's other white women who offer DEI as one or all of their services, and they are still making money. because that is how white supremacy works. Even though DEI is one of the services I offer, because of my intersectionality, because I'm a Black person, a woman, and disabled, people just think all I do is DEI, and no one wants to do DEI stuff anymore because they're getting rid of all their DEI stuff because of this current government. We have a racist, homophobic, transphobic, ableist, sexist president of this country. And that empowers people to say, I no longer want to be held accountable to how I felt after the murder of George Floyd. I no longer want to be held accountable for making sure that we have an inclusive space in the workforce. I no longer want to be held accountable for feeling like I am benefiting from the direct product of white supremacy. And so as a result, that means I have to suffer. As a result, that means I have to work harder.
So what advice do you have for emerging leaders from the marginalized communities striving to make impactful changes in this new hellscape?
So one is we're going to stop saying marginalized. I'm not marginalized.
Okay. Thank you.
I am not marginalized at all. There's a lot of BIPOC people who are here, and this is no fault to your own, but this is
what word should we use?
The language that we're accustomed to. So we're talking about historically excluded groups.
Okay.
They are me, systemic exclusion. They don't want me. They don't want disabled folks. They don't want women. They don't want, BIPOC people to be in positions of power and be in these spaces. So when we say like historically excluded, purposely ignored groups, those are also other versions of words. We're putting it on the system and not the people, right? Right now, as women, we are fighting for basic ass human rights.
The voice instead of
passive
voice.
We're not fighting, but we're not fighting over the vast deference. We're not fighting over,
That is a sentence I never thought I would hear.
We're not fighting over that, but we're fighting over ovaries. We're fighting over our uterus, right? We're not doing that for men because again, that is the benefit of white supremacy. It's the benefit of intersectionality there. So we all have to be in positions where we are checking our bias and checking our privilege every day, right? So to that example of me being tired, when I walk into the historic Coliseum where the Oakland Raiders and the Oakland A's played, I go into the parking lot where the big owners of the team park, where the players park. I walk around and I run that place. I can do whatever the fuck I want because I'm the owner of the team. But me being the owner of the team is not just being an owner of a team. It is a disabled Black woman who owns two professional soccer teams. When I go to the Valkyries game, I go to the Valkyries game as an owner of these teams, but as someone who also works with sports organizations, as someone who wants to elevate women's basketball, NBA. So it continues to elevate like the MNBA, men's NBA.
Thank you. I always hated that in high school. It was like the Vikings played and then the Lady Vikings played.
Right, exactly. But then that's why I'm in these spaces because I use my power and privilege when I don't fucking have to. I'm tired. I'm in pain. I don't want to do it, but I still do it. And I role model that behavior for other individuals to do the same thing.
Speaking of role modeling, I want to thank you for describing what you were wearing as you talked about yourself, because that is something that I know I need to do. And I just never seem to have the energy, and I'm going to make a more effort to do it, especially because my vision is starting to. I'm not concerned I'm going to have my vision.
You have to give yourself grace with that. The
reminder was it was so nice. I saw it. I didn't feel bad about myself for it. I was like, that's freaking genius.
That's how you do it.
That is how you do it.
You role model the behavior, right? You just put your captions on in a meeting. Anytime I do a workshop, I'm like, hey, does anyone need anything for accessibility or inclusion? But before I say that, it's like, just so you know, I'm hard of hearing. So I may ask you to repeat yourself. Just, if it gets too loud, I'm going to put some things in so I can hear you better. But again, I use my mind, body, spirit, and soul to help people figure out how to do the work. And if I can do it when I have every excuse in the world to not do it, because remember, disabled people can't do shit. That's what the stereotype is, right? So, which is not true. If I can use my pretty privilege, if I can use the power that I have in different spaces, if I can use the accolades, if I can use my privilege of being whatever form of a public figure people want to call me, I'm going to do that until the day I die. And the day I die could be tomorrow because the risk of death is real for me. My body thinks it's having a heart attack every day. So I can't get stressed out. I'm always chill. am, definitely direct. I always have to have life-saving medication with me, but today could be my last day. So I live every day to the fullest. Tomorrow, when I'm not doing shit and I'm figuring out what I'm going to watch on the couch where I'm probably high on some form of an edible,
Fuck yeah. I
am
can't
not
wait
going
to
to do
go
anything
smoke
but
a bowl
take care
after
of
this. So,
myself. Yeah, tomorrow. But, I'll
because I
rest tomorrow.
deliberately
But
did it today because I'm like, I can't be high at all while I'm talking to you.
But I have the privilege to do that tomorrow. And even if I had something to do that was kind of worth it, I would kind of push myself, but still find some time to rest. But I'm doing that because I have a 6:45 a.m. shoot on Monday. So I have to find the way to get the rest in. But all of this rant is saying is that the rest, the support, the healthcare, the awareness, we shouldn't have to advocate for, on top of the fact that we have to advocate for ourselves just to exist. Where I am right now is the home that white supremacy was able to get me, because when everyone cared about white supremacy, I was able to buy a home. And this is the only supportive space I have. This is the only safest space I have. Coincidentally and ironically, when I was in escrow in May 2021, I bought a multi-level home. And I didn't know I had EDS. If I knew I had EDS, I would have kept looking for a home to have a single story home. So my home is also a little bit of a death trap, but they're my stairs and they're my carpeted stairs, and I know how to navigate them.
Know that feeling.
This is the only place where I have all the things, because we all know we don't know when we're going to need an assistive device or the heating pad or the thing or the spray or this drug or whatever it is.
And you don't want to be like a pack mule going places either.
You don't. I mean, I have a lot of shit in my car, which is why I
Same.
drive everywhere. And I have my VIP placard. People may know it as American with Disabilities Act placard. That allows me to have more access to things, which I appreciate.
Nice.
This is the only place where I can fully be myself. Once I step outside, there could be a weird step thing, or there isn't a banister, or someone's being sexist or racist or whatever they want to be towards me. This is the only space I have that. So as soon as I go outside, the energy suck happens immensely. And so I do hope some point in our lives, all of us, that we can have a moment of softness that becomes a more regular daily occurrence that we can live in, instead of feeling hard and feeling exhausted and feeling not seen, not heard, not validated, stressed, tired, exhausted, whatever those feelings are. I want all of us to have that. But until then, I have to keep moving forward.
We would love for you to have moments of softness and joy in the way that you deserve. And so we will continue our work in advocacy. I would love to talk to you again.
Yeah, we come
I
talk
would
to
love
us
to come
again.
back. We got to do a part 2, because I was looking at these questions. And there's some great questions that we need to do for a round 2.
That's from those two.
Do we have time for one last one or no? What time is it?
Let's do one last question and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Okay. My last
I'm gonna be quiet.
question then is, we've touched on your work, and we've touched on, that, but not so specifically. Your company is Change Cadet. What do you aim to do through your work, and what legacy do you want to leave with your empire?
Yeah, so the work I do is focused in executive coaching, working with people of power and influence, whether it is a celebrity, an influencer, an executive of a for-profit or nonprofit organization, whether it's a million or multi-million or billion-dollar organization. Crisis management. So I am a Virgo, and I'm really great at connecting the dots.
My youngest was here. She'd be like,
Virgo rising.
Are you September or August?
I'm a September Virgo.
Girl, same. So she's September 1st.
Virgos always be telling you they're Virgos too.
Yeah, it's important that everyone knows.
I don't have to tell people I'm an Aries. They know.
September 2nd for me. And I also, with crisis management, that's a way in which people can learn and unlearn. And that's a big pillar in my life. How can we keep learning and unlearning? Because we all don't know what we don't know. And how can we repair internally, externally, or both? And then I do creative. And so creative is a strategic storytelling, planning, marketing, thinking about what's
helping people with their books.
Helping people with their books. Yeah, I'm an editor, so I do that. Writing, it's my producing, it's this any form of storytelling I'm really into. And I also manage, I do a lot of it in the art world. And I also manage a couple of artists, of painters. And so those are the areas that I'm focused on. When needed, I will do DEI. When needed, I'll definitely do a workshop or a talk, but that's the work that I do. But it's all rooted in storytelling for people to feel validated, seen, and heard in spaces and places. And I don't have to think about my legacy. My legacy is already set. I'm on a Forbes list. I have a book. I've changed so many people's lives. I made sure I would talk about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome for the one thing I wanted to happen with the book, which happened, which was a Black person said, I've never seen anyone who's Black who's talked about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
So, I feel good about that. I own a soccer team. I've run the most successful community investment round in American sports history. I've made my mark. It's there. And so again, death is on my door every day. I think about death every day. And so I will die a happy person, and I'll be up there with my baby I miscarried, my dog, and my grandma. And I will feel very happy and content with that.
The love story of Marley maybe made me cry a little. Yeah. We have so much in common, but also can learn so much from you. So
I've learned so much in this hour.
For agreeing to come back. And I hope you enjoy the adventures of your day, because I wish I was with you. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of outfit changes, but we're gonna make it work. Thank you so much. Thank you for reading the book. Thank you for asking such thoughtful questions. Marley is always with me, behind me, and he's one of the reasons why I get to keep being amazing, and why I'm thrilled and honored to say to all of you to keep being amazing. So I look forward to coming back and having part 2 and a longer conversation. Thank you for using your platform to share my story. I really appreciate it.
And if you get a chance, you are the second BIPOC woman we've talked to. The other disabled Black woman, her name is Lyrical Shakespeare. I'll call her out. She's a performer and artist as well, but she is not diagnosed. So it's a very interesting comparison. If people want to listen, maybe we'll link it in the show notes. People can listen back.
That's season 2. Yeah.
About, these different experiences, because being Black is not one experience. The same as being disabled is not one experience. And most of the people that we, encounter in our social media being advocates and that sort of thing, or that are, not white people, are not diagnosed. And so I just want to point that out, how lucky we are to get to share, representation matters.
Stories. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for spending some time today before you go off and be a boss bitch.
And enjoy that edible tomorrow.
I will. I look forward to it. Countdown.
And I can't wait to see the outfits. If we're honest.
Yeah, we're going to go. We'll be on your socials later watching you.
Well, we'll see. I mean, this is outfit 1, which is 2 for 1, because the Valkyrie's color is violet, and it's my team. It's just, I have a hat that I have to add on. It's a whole thing. But all right. Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Look forward to hanging out with y'all again.
Thank you.
Bye.
So much.
And that's going to do it for season 3 of the Hacking Hypermobility podcast. I'm Shelly, and I'm responsible for the majority of season 3. Hope you liked it. Shout out to Tiffany and Luna for all of the work they did in getting Dr. Wang, Dr. Cadet, and Jeannie Daban to speak to us on our show. And I would like to give a shout out to my hip surgeon, Dr. Ben Petrie at Luminous Orthopedics. He just fixed my left hip, and it's been 2 weeks and I'm feeling great. And I tell everybody about you. So if you get an influx of bendy baddies with hip problems, sorry, not sorry. I might be done with surgery for a while. We'll find out next week when I go see my hand guy about this thumb. Luna's going to keep on making everyone laugh, and Tiffany's going to keep on being her badass graphic designer self. And I'm going to write my damn book. So if you don't hear from us before January 31st, don't worry. We just come back on International Zebra Day. Until then, wishing you happy, healthy hypermobility.